Hey Arnold, Arnold for President by Craig Bartlett. Continuation. Chapter 5. Well, Arnold, our little campaign is proceeding just like we planned, Gerald said to Arnold that afternoon as they walked down the hallway towards the school's front doors, pausing to get their jackets out of their lockers. Nice introduction of the skateboard ramp theme. But what was that about a talent show? What talent do we have? We'll think of something, Arnold said. You can play the piano. Gerald sighed. Everybody plays the piano at a talent show. Helga dictated to Phoebe as they walked down the hallway. Find out what in the heck the football head was talking about. What skateboard ramp? Phoebe nodded, writing skateboard ramp in her little spiral notebook. Helga continued, We've got to dig up some dirt on the idea. Prove it's impossible or that he's lying. You know, something crummy about his plan. Phoebe looked up doubtfully at Helga. About Arnold? He's typically quite honest, Helga. Helga rolled her eyes. Do I have to spell it out, Phoebe? It's his dumb, phony, football-headed honesty I'm trying to tear down. If I can make him look like a liar, then the presidency is ours. Phoebe knew Helga was wrong and wanted to say something about it. But at that moment, they passed Arnold and Gerald's lockers. Phoebe's eyes met Gerald's. There was an uncomfortable pause. Hi, Gerald, Phoebe said in a tiny voice. Gerald looked coolly at Phoebe, seeming to read her mind. Hey, Phoebe. Did he know what Helga had planned? Phoebe's heart beat faster as they walked away. Gerald watched them go, then turned to Arnold. Phoebe looks guilty. I wonder what Helga's got up her sleeve. Chapter 6. 2 days later, Helga stood at the podium tearing Arnold's act down while the other candidates watched, amazed, from their chairs in the front of the room. It was the second round of debates. Arnold knew that my dad was planning to co-sponsor a skateboard ramp for the school, along with Vermicelli Towing and the Sheck Cement Company. He knew that the Year 5s were raising money for it, and he and Gerald were pretending to make it sound like it was their idea. Gerald jumped up from his desk, pointing at Helga. That's a total lie, and you know it. The kids erupted in shouts and questions all at once. A Year 5 skateboard ramp? Who told Helga? Mr. Simmons waved his arms frantically. Class, democracy is exciting, but please, let's quiet it down. But Arnold and Gerald were still standing. We didn't know about your dad's plan, Helga, because you only came up with it last night, Arnold yelled. Helga snapped right back. My dad's been planning this for months. It's all on the up and up. You just stole the idea, football head. There were more shouts from the class. Desperate, Mr. Simmons pounded his desktop several times. Everyone, sit down. That's enough, he yelled, surprising even himself. The kids immediately stopped shouting and sat down. Thank you, he sighed. Arnold walked to his desk. He turned to look behind him. At the back of the room, Helga looked back at him, annoyed. What? She asked. Arnold gave Helga a look he almost never used on anyone. A cool as ice stare. He stared at her for a long moment, then turned back to his books. Helga felt a chill pass through her. Arnold was actually mad. Really, really mad. Over the years, she had let her beloved down plenty of times. She had to. How else could she keep up with the facade that she hated him? She opened her geography book and snuck a peek inside. The soap-carved Arnold bust seemed to gaze back at her in icy judgment. Helga slammed the book shut and gulped. She looked at the back of Arnold's head. "Oh, Arnold," she breathed, barely a whisper. "I've always loved you, and I always pretended to hate you. It's been our little routine, but you always seem to forgive me." And just then, in that moment, Helga deeply regretted everything she had said in the campaign. But by the time the 3 o'clock bell rang, Helga had convinced herself that it was worth it. She had to. How else could she stomp out of the classroom like she did every afternoon at 3 o'clock as Helga G. Pataki, the toughest kid in year 4? Chapter 7. Arnold is a big, fat liar. It was morning. Arnold looked up at the block letter poster from all the way down the hall. But there wasn't just one poster. There were several. And there were many variations. Would you want a phony football head for president? Skateboard ramp? Yeah, sure. And Crimney. What a lying dweeb. Gerald shook his head in amazement. Arnold, we have got to counterattack. Arnold nodded. I agree, but how? I have no idea, Gerald said. We could go through her rubbish tonight and see what we can find on her. I think Sid's got some pictures of her sucking her thumb. Arnold shook his head. Nah, we should take the high road, Gerald. Gerald blinked. What high road? Arnold continued. If she wants to run a dirty campaign, we should stay clean. The other kids are smart. They'll know the difference and vote for us. Gerald shook his head. Smart, Arnold? Have you met our classmates? Arnold and Gerald entered the classroom, passing Helga and Phoebe on their way to their desk. Again, Phoebe greeted Gerald with a tiny, guilty hello. This time, Gerald ignored it. The morning passed slowly as Mr. Simmons lectured on about math, science, and social studies. But Arnold and Gerald couldn't concentrate. All they could think about was Helga. What did she know that they didn't? Maybe it was time to ask some year 5s. They found Wolfgang by the cafeteria door, where he usually stood, giving random shoves to the year 3s coming outside with their lunch trays. Helga. Yeah, I talked to her. What about it, tall hair? Wolfgang, the year 5 bully, towered over Gerald, who bravely squinted up at him. What's she got to do with a certain year 5 skateboard ramp? Gerald asked. Wolfgang snorted. Why should I tell you? Arnold held out a bag of jelly beans. Wolfgang looked into the bag. Watermelon? Arnold nodded. Yeah, and peanut butter and coconut. Wolfgang took the bag. Okay. She stole your idea for a skateboard ramp. Then she got her dad to call up some construction guy he knows and get them to pay for it. Wolfie snorted. The ramp's probably gonna have Big Bob's beepers painted all over it. He pointed to a corner of the playground. It's going in right over there. Arnold turned to Gerald in disbelief. I can't believe Helga would go to so much trouble just to win. Wolfgang laughed. She hates you, man. She does it just to mess with your dumb football head. Anyways, like I care. Class president is for losers. He tripped a year 3. Now, stop bugging me. I'm busy. Arnold and Gerald walked off. Nice talking to you, Wolfgang. Chapter 8. While Arnold and Gerald talked outside, A worried Phoebe scribbled down notes as Helga took her coat out of her locker. "And bring plenty of tape, Phoebe. We'll put the new posters in the hall outside the cafeteria." Phoebe checked her notes. She was getting tired of this. "I'm afraid that Rhonda already put up posters in that hallway." Helga put her coat on. "No problem. We'll put ours over Rhonda's." Phoebe closed her notebook and cleared her throat. "Helga, I don't feel right about the way our campaign is going. Your methods are not exactly on the up and up." Helga leaned into Phoebe's face. "Look, Phoebe, I want to be class president, and I don't care who I have to step on to get it. Got it?" Phoebe looked back at Helga, then tucked her notebook into her bag. "Fine," she said primly, and walked away. Helga stared at Phoebe's back as she disappeared down the hall. "Phoebe? Where you going? We gotta make posters. Phoebe!" The door closed at the end of the hallway. Helga muttered angrily as she slammed her locker shut. The sun was setting as Helga trudged into her house. She found Big Bob watching the fights on TV. "Dad, can I talk to you?" Bob didn't turn from the screen. "Hit him with the left. The left. Ooh, that's gonna hurt tomorrow." "Dad, you know the skateboard ramp for the year 5s? Bob didn't look up. "You mean the one I'm paying for?" Helga nodded. "I was wondering if it's such a good idea." That got his attention. Big Bob finally looked up. Hey. What you talking about? Last night you were begging me to do it. I've already called in a ton of favors to Nick and the guys at the Shake Cement Company. They're all in. That skateboard ramp's as good as built. The ink's dry. That ship has sailed." Big Bob turned back to his fight. Helga trudged upstairs to her room. She opened her closet door, parted her hangered clothes, knelt on the floor, and turned on the Christmas lights. Helga sighed a wistful sigh as she gazed at her Arnold shrine. "Oh, my tender, foolish, right-minded little candidate. How I betrayed thee, and yet I must continue to fight you to the bitter end." She hung her head, barely able to face even the crude, handmade replica of the boy she loved. "I know that in the selfish pursuit of my goal, I may seem to be a scheming, cursed wretch, but please don't jump to conclusions. Things aren't always what they seem, my love." Helga reached out and touched Arnold's grassy cheek. "Dearest Arnold, tomorrow we vote. Please forgive me this final day of mudslinging." Helga closed her eyes and bowed her head. Chapter 9. Finally, the big day arrived. Mr. Simmons stood at the chalkboard. "Class, today is the day we've all been waiting for. The democratic process in action. Election Day. Now I know we're all eager to hear our candidates' final speeches, so let's get started. Rhonda?" Rhonda walked primly to the podium. "Thank you. I care about this year 4 class. Over the past 2 weeks, I've listened to the concerns of my fellow students, and they have become my concerns. Like Sid, whose pet peeve is long cafeteria lines, and Stinky, who wonders how a simple country boy is going to be able to afford new art supplies." Helga rolled her eyes and groaned out loud. Somebody tossed her a crying towel. Rhonda glared at Helga, then continued. "In the last 2 weeks, there has been plenty of mudslinging and dishonesty. I won't name any names, Helga and Arnold, but I feel that certain campaigns have made this whole democratic process thing very unpleasant." She pointed at the class. You can change that. A vote for Rhonda Lloyd is a vote for decency and good taste. So remember, for a tasteful presidency, vote Rhonda. Thank you. She sat down as the class applauded. Helga made a rude armpit noise and grinned at Phoebe, who looked away uncomfortably. Arnold was next at the podium. His gaze rested on Helga. She scowled back. Then Arnold began. Well, Rhonda's right. It has been kind of a mean campaign. People have called other people's names. Helga scrunched down ever so slightly in her chair. Arnold looked right at her and continued. The thing I want to say is, I may appear in some people's words to be a big fat liar. But please don't jump to conclusions. Things aren't always what they seem. Helga grew hot. She felt her heart pierced with a flaming arrow of shame as her beloved repeated her secret thoughts of last night, almost word for word. She reeled in a haze of tormented feelings as Arnold finished his speech and sat down. She barely heard Mr. Simmons call her name. It was her turn. Helga took a deep breath, then staggered up to the front of the class as the kids hooted and clapped. She gripped the podium and calmed herself. Okay, you morons, listen up. I maybe spoke too soon about certain football heads being big fat liars. The class gasped. Was Helga G. Pataki actually making a retraction? I mean, maybe it wasn't my idea to build a year 5 skateboard ramp. Maybe it was Arnold's idea and I convinced my dad to pay for it. So maybe he didn't cheat or lie or steal an idea or anything. Arnold's eyes widened. He smiled at her. Helga gripped the podium tighter and resisted the urge to swoon or slap herself. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to go on. But that doesn't mean that a skateboard ramp isn't a dumb idea. I mean, come on. How many of you clods actually own a skateboard? Several hands went up. Helga scowled and waved her arms dismissively. Anyway, forget about skateboard ramps for a second. My point is this. I still got the qualifications you want in a president. Leadership. Take no prisoners kind of leadership. A president that will fight for your rights in the classroom and in the hallways. So you can say it out loud. Year 4 and proud. She pumped her fist in the air. Vote Helga G. Pataki for president. The class was on their feet, roaring approval. Arnold, Gerald, Rhonda, and even Phoebe were clapping. As Helga walked back to her desk, she passed Mr. Simmons. Could that be a tear he was wiping away? Wonderful. Very moving, Miss Pataki. And now, our last speech before we vote. Of course, Curly. Curly sprang to the podium and nodded to his classmates. Hello, fellow Martians. As you know, we have the entire lunch period to vote. So please drop by the little information booth that I've opened outside the cafeteria. And remember, vote for me. Curly, my dad owns an ice cream company, Gamblethorpe. The lunch bell rang and Curly dashed out of the room. Mr. Simmons called out to the kids as they left their desk. Remember, class, the ballot box is right here. Vote anytime during lunch period. Chapter 10. Arnold, Gerald, Rhonda, Nadine, Helga, and Phoebe went straight to Mr. Simmons' booth and cast their votes. Meanwhile, Harold led the rest of the class out of the door to see what Curly was talking about. Outside the cafeteria, they gathered around a little card table with a simple hand-lettered sign that read, Ask me about Curly for president. Stinky walked away from Curly's table holding a coupon. He couldn't believe his eyes. Willikers says here is good for 1 free ice cream at Gamblethorpe's. Curly nodded, grinning. That's right, Stinkeroo. And there's 10 more where that came from if you vote for me. The others crowded in. Me next, they yelled. After lunch, Mr. Simmons counted all the ballots. He reported the amazing news. Curly had won in a landslide. Arnold, Helga, and Rhonda all stared, dumbstruck. Curly yelled, I'm president! I'm president! He jumped up on the top of Mr. Simmons' desk, high-kicking and singing, Ta-ra-ra, boom, yay! Then he ran out of the room laughing. So long, suckers. Mr. Simmons called after Curly as he disappeared down the hall. Curly? It's only 1:15. Curly, where are you going? Come back. At 3 o'clock, the final bell rang. The kids poured out of school and down the street. Arnold watched Gerald walk off with Phoebe. He joked about something, and she laughed. It looked like they were friends again. Arnold turned and saw Helga walking the other way up the street. Helga, he called out. Helga scowled at Arnold as he ran to catch up with her. Yeah, what do you want? Arnold shrugged. I don't know. I guess I want to thank you for what you said today. It took guts. Helga was thrilled. She hid a secret little smile. Then she regained her composure, tough as ever. Hey, why not? Who could beat Curly anyway? Arnold laughed. Yeah, the kid with the ice cream store. Weird little freak, Helga added. I tell you, football head, it's a funny world. You may not be class president, but I talked to my dad and it looks like you're still going to get your skateboard ramp. Courtesy of Sheck's Cement, Vermicelli Towing, and Big Bob's Beepers. Arnold grinned. Really? That's great. Arnold kicked the can. You know what? I'm kind of glad Curly won. I've had enough of politics. Helga nodded. Me too. They reached the corner. Until next year, she said. And then I'm going to kick your butt, football head. The end of Hey Arnold, Arnold for President by Craig Bartlett.